Since the time that I got there, the trainer on the whiteboard put up there and said, "This is a truck." Things we never even knew. We knew about the truck drivers on the streets. You know, when you're a kid and you do your honk honk with your hand, and then the truck driver, they honk back at you. We all know about that. I had family who owned trucks, but I never knew the back end, how it all happened. When you get to Freight Quote, they put a lot of stock in the education. That's one thing we loved about him.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun at all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today, Jeff is interviewing Jai Mays. Jai is the founder and president of Mays Freight Solutions, a freight broker and logistics solutions provider. Prior to founding Mays Freight Solutions in 2017, she had been in transportation and supply chain management for over 12 years. Jai is also the author of the book, Finding Your Toddler Ambition. She is a panel, podcast, and motivational speaker, and was recently honored by the Kansas City Business Journal as one of the women who mean business. You can learn more about Jai at maysfreightsolutions.com. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Jai.
Jai, I'd like to welcome you today to the Corporate Couch.
Hi.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm not bad. How about yourself?
Oh, very excited to talk to you. You've had a fantastic career, and you've done some great things. So, I think you and I'll say virtually met when Randy Powell was doing his Lessons in Leadership podcast, and you were a guest. So I've heard some of your story from that, and we'll dig into a little bit more here. So I'm very excited that you took the opportunity to come out today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
So I always like to start with a fun question, but even that people that know you fairly well, what one or two things would they be surprised to hear about you?
That I quit, or I gave up on something.
I see.
Or they'd be surprised to hear that, that's a good question. I know one thing that they would be surprised to say is, because I'm not a quitter, I'll keep going. Now you've got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
That's right.
I don't know when to fold them. I keep holding. So, yeah. And another thing that people would be surprised at is if I jumped out of a plane, if I took a big risk on tandem jumping, something like that.
Okay.
So I'm a risk taker when it comes to business, but I'm not a risk taker when it comes to my life.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
That's good. And you're a Kansas City native, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. What did you love doing as a child?
Love doing as a child. Wow. So I'm a PK, which is a preacher's kid. And so I grew up in church. So we were in church 7 days out of the week, all the time, because of course my parents are pastors, so they had to govern the church. And not only did we have church on Sundays, we had weekly services, but it still deals with business, so they had to govern the church and make sure all of the back office things were done with the church. So we were always at the church. So I love to play the drums. That was the thing. My favorite thing to do was when we got to the church, I had to get on the drum set, and I would improve my skills daily because I wanted to be the best drum player at the church. Also, I love to sing. And so my mom was one to put us out. We are a musical family. Everyone, if we don't play an instrument, we sing in our family. And so getting on the stage and singing or pretending I'm in front of a big crowd and taking the mic and pretending I'm Diana Ross or someone, just
Love
in
it.
front of a big crowd. And so
Love it.
it's either playing the drums or singing. Those were my two things that I like to do as a child. And I also like to mimic my mother. And she was a businesswoman. She's a glamorous woman and a businesswoman at the same time. So she had a briefcase and she was always dressed up nicely. So I'd like to mimic her, and I would like to try to carry a briefcase and dress up and a note pen as if I was very busy, like she was always busy. So those are things that I would do as a child too. Those are my things that really excited me.
Yeah. What's your favorite song to sing today?
My favorite song is it's called Blessed, and I can't remember the producer. He comes to mind, but now I'm drawing a blank. But it's a song called Blessed, and I sing it in my head all the time. We're blessed in the city, we're blessed in the field, we're blessed when we come and when we go. And we fall down, but God, He lifts us back up. And so that's one of the songs that I sing in my head
Oh,
all the time. I
beautiful.
hum it all the time.
Beautiful. That's very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, growing up in Kansas City, then you decide to go. I think you got your degree at National American University.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I started off at different colleges. Neosho County, I had a tennis scholarship there. I ventured off to another college, and just, I'm gonna be honest, I take it as serious as I should have? Not really. And and then while I was away, my mother ended up getting hurt. So I told my dean and everyone, I said, listen, I'm going to move back to help my mother. My father passed when I was 14 years old. So she had been taking care of the other four siblings. Actually, the other three. My oldest brother went to the Navy. I went off to college. And so there were three left. She got hurt. And so I came back to Kansas City and I finished at National American University.
And what was you got a degree in
Business administration.
yeah, so business degree. What led you to for that major?
Watching my mother and my father. My father was always a businessman also. And he, when I was young, my father's blind, by the way. So he kept my brother and I, the oldest two, he kept us motivated all the time. Don't be a victim. He never said that. He said, sky is not the limit. There's something beyond the sky. So, but he always taught us business. He used to sit us down and teach us about money management, credit, the possibilities in life. And so between my father, my godfather, his name is William Hawkins, he is my father's, they were very close, very good friends. He owned a financial firm and took care of all of my dad's financial business, even with the church and things like that. My mother owned a bakery and she was also a singer. So she had a group that traveled all around Kansas, actually all around the nation, not Kansas City, the nation, and would open for like people like Earth, Wind, and Fire. And she got to sing for Jesse Jackson. So there was a lot of business. My dad was her manager. So I used to see a lot of business happening all the time,
Right.
whether it was church life or my mom's group life or her bakery. So it's just being in business. That was our main thing.
Yeah.
Learning business.
Did you have aspirations ever of becoming a singer in your adult?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I wanted to become a model. I was tall. My mom's 6 feet tall. So I wanted to become a model. And my father, he cut that out immediately. He says,
Right.
no, no, no. Because, and I had an opportunity. And he's like, no, you will never, you'll never, you will never. So that was done.
Right.
But I wanted to be a singer. I did. And it just, mainly what I was singing was gospel. So because my parents were pastors, the secular world I really didn't get into that. I wanted to be a jazz singer, a lounge singer. I also wanted to do that as well. And my sister kind of took that on and she was doing lounge singing and jazz singing. And it just took a turn for me. So I just sang in church and I sing around the house now. And every once in a while I'll sing karaoke.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've done karaoke twice. I'm not sure I'm doing it again, but it's all good.
It's fun. It's fun. I love it. I love it.
What was their first job out of college, and how did you get that job?
So my first job out of college. So here's I'll tell you this. Here's a funny story. I finished college, which I thought I did. And when I went to collect my degree, walked the stage, cap and gown and cap and gown. And this was about, let me see, my daughter turned 1. No, she was 6 months. So she's 7 now. So this is 18 years ago. 18 years ago, they told me I was done. No, I wasn't. I come to find out I was one class short.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God.
So when I thought I was done, I got discouraged. I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. You guys, you've robbed me on my degree. I don't want to go back. Well, 10 years later, I went back to get that one class, Principles of Accounting 3.
Oh my
So
God.
I know, try doing that.
Well, good for you that you did that.
Yes, I did. So I went back and I was already working for Freight Quote when I completed that last
I see.
class.
Okay.
So the lesson is, and the takeaway is, it's never too late.
Right.
Yeah, I got all the way to the finish line only to find out that they said I was short one class. I did get discouraged and said, you know what? I don't need this. I'm already have a great career. I was in transportation. I don't need this. But then I did finally go back and get it.
That's
I mean,
good.
we're all human and things like these happen.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. You see a lot of professional athletes, even though they're rich and famous, and some do it while they're in their career or even after. Like Ray Allen went back to get his degree, and if there's numerous athletes, so it's impressive because it's like you obviously didn't need to know Principles of Accounting 3. You were already
right.
successful, you know. So yes, tell us about your Freight Quote experience and why did you go to Freight Quote?
Freight Quote. So I was introduced to Freight Quote through a friend of mine. She called me one day. I was just, I was jumping between jobs. I was in corporate America. And when you're in corporate America, you're just trying to find your way. You
Mhm.
know that this is something you want to do. I was doing data entry, customer service, and sometimes it feels like, is this the path that I want to take? And I'm still trying to find myself. I'm thinking corporate America is something I want to do, but I'm trying to find myself. I haven't found the niche yet. I tried several businesses, which were dealing in the beauty industry. So, I tried to venture out and start some of those. That didn't work out the way I wanted them to. So I closed those down. So I had tried several things. A girlfriend of mine called me and told me she had got this incredible job at an incredible place. And I said, tell me more about it. And she was like, they're family oriented. Everyone is there is so nice, so cool, and they pay pretty well. I said, okay, well, I'd like to know more about it. So I went in and she got me set up to where I can get an interview. And I did interview. When the lady told me all the opportunities, she actually told me that I interviewed for more than what I applied for. She said, you would be perfect in a different position, but unfortunately, we don't have those positions open. So I told her, I mean, the way she had explained the job to me, I told her, it doesn't matter. You could put me in the mailroom. I just want to get my foot in the door. I like it here. I want to be a part of this. My girlfriend rants and raves about it. She says, you guys have beer Fridays all the time. I've got to be a part of this. What is this? So she said, okay, well, listen, I can start you here in this position. It was the lower level position. I took it, the you had to work late, come in late, work late, customer service. I didn't care. I knew in my mind that give me 6 months, I'll be out of here. So during the interview process, she also told me about sales. I had never done sales ever, but she told me about sales and she says that is the position that is the most lucrative. It always stuck in the back of my mind that I should probably venture out into sales. Well, I got into customer service. It worked well. I started talking to, the whispers. I started talking to different people in the sales department saying, hey, can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about that? Can you tell me about this? They did. When I was in training, the trainers, when you take a personality test, the trainers came back and told me that my personality test equaled sales to the T and I would be good in it. And they came to recruit me, but then I was in customer service. So that manager said, nope, you can't take Jai away from us. We're going to keep her down here. That's fine. 2 to 3 years and working with Freight Quote, I finally got into sales. And lo and behold, in the first year, I advanced very quickly. And in about 3 years after that, I was top 10. I was in the
Wow.
top 10 slot for
Yeah,
sales.
amazing.
So it is.
Yeah.
It is. I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So what in your background growing up, your college experience, because you're a competitive tennis player, obviously, because you played in post high school level, you're a singer, musician. Obviously, get being a tennis player is competitive, sales is competitive. But what do you think in your foundational background growing up, made you a great salesperson?
Watching my father. So, and there were people who shaped me, honestly. So my father was blind. One thing I learned about him was he was a negotiator. He was such the negotiator. Sometimes when I was young, it would get on my nerves. We go places to buy something. He'd negotiate it. Come on, Dad. We're at Foot Locker. They already told you it's $29.99. Why are you asking him for a coupon? Or hey, man, can you get this to me for $20? That was just his nature. He negotiated every price. He never took that what was on the table or what was on the shelf as a go. He never did. And people would cave for him. I mean, they would offer him, they would come up with coupons that didn't exist. They would call the manager out because he negotiated his way through everything. So I had that growing up. There were other people in my life that shaped me. I was around real estate agents, and I was around life insurance agents, and I would shadow them in places that they would go, and people who own large insurance firms. I was in the circles with those people, and I would just watch and shadow what they did, how they negotiated, how they were movers and shakers, and how they would close deals. And I was always intrigued by that, never thinking that I would have to use these skills that I have been around to. I never thought that I would have to use them, but all of a sudden, when I did get into that position of sales, everything replayed in my head of what I learned and how I shadowed. And I started using those. I applied that knowledge. Knowledge is power. Power, no, applied knowledge is power. So I started to apply what I learned, and it just ended up working out for me. I also used to listen to sales reps. I have a brother who's a very slick talker as well. I used to watch him. He's very slick. I used to watch him with the ladies, and I used to watch him as he negotiated things when he was in real estate. He was very slick talker, very fast talker, very slick talker. He'd always get the job done, but man, was he brilliant on how he did things. Yeah. I used to watch him talk himself out of tickets. I was young, riding with my brother. He would be speeding or doing something he wasn't supposed to do. He would talk himself out of the ticket.
Wow.
And so everything that I was around, I just applied what I learned, and I would put it in. And the number one thing that my father would teach me is, even as the church, he would teach me to listen. Because he would have so many people come to him with their problems. His main strength was listening. And so I took that as well. That to listen to the problem, listen to the pain point. Don't come up with a solution yet because you don't even know what the problem is.
Yeah, I love that.
Listen to the problem. And then when they're done, that's when you take some time and you come up with a solution. You can't come up with something right away. And so I learned that. And that's what took it to the next level with me in sales, is I would actually listen to the customers, listen to their pain points, and I would let them know that I'll get back with you with what we can do. But I would never come up with something immediately unless it was one of those scenarios where I had to come up with something immediately. But I would want to come up with a strategy or a solution that was for longevity, not a quick fix. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And it takes time. That
Yeah.
takes time. So applied knowledge. I applied all that knowledge that I got from my dad and all his old school friends. And I used to listen to the older people a lot. I was young, but I would listen to their conversations. When you're kids, you're eavesdropping. So
sure, absolutely.
I was a nosy one, but I would have key takeaways that I would take from every scenario in my life. I grew up around older people. I had an older soul. They call it an old soul. I never grew up around my peers when I was older. When I'm 17, 18, 19, I was always around people who were 10 years older than me, 10 to 20 years older than me. And that's just how it's been most of my life since I was 18, 19, and 20 years old. And I mainly wanted to learn so I could know what not to do. If you know there's a lion around the corner, you won't go around the corner to get eaten by the lion. So I was always wanting to know what to do, what not to do.
I love that. It's great that you really had all these mentors growing up that helped form you as a great and accomplished salesperson. Was there any books you read that helped you in your evolving as a great salesperson?
So I love the book, The Slight Edge. I read Blue Ocean, Red Ocean. Well, the Blue Ocean, I call it Blue Ocean. I take it from
Right.
the book, but the Blue Ocean is really, really good book. Talks about
Right.
the
Yeah,
red.
I've heard of that one. Tell me about. I'm not familiar with the Slight Edge. What is that one about?
So the Slight Edge, Jeff Olson. So
Okay.
the Slight Edge is a really good book. The Slight Edge talks about procrastination. It also talks about taking the chance, the risk, pulling the trigger. Let me see if I can explain this to you. So Slight Edge talks about the doers and those who don't do. I'll give you an example. You say you're going to exercise, but you put it off, you put it off, and you put it off, and now you're 400 pounds. But if you would have started the first day that he said you were going to exercise, then you would not be 400 pounds. Or you can eat a cheeseburger every day, every day, every day. And even though that cheeseburger might not give you heart disease today, if you continue to eat that cheeseburger every day, you will eventually get heart disease. Another scenario is you have a friend, there's two roommates. One says, I'm going to start saving $5 a paycheck, and the other keeps putting it off. Well, you're 3 years down the line and the other kept putting it off, but you've got the one that saved $5 every paycheck. He's got a huge savings. Now he's jealous. Now the one who put it off is jealous. So it's more of procrastination.
Right.
That's one thing I like about the Slight Edge. It tells you to take action, don't procrastinate. These are the consequences if you procrastinate. These are the rewards if you take action. Mm-hmm. That's what the Slight Edge is about. It's a really good read. I'm just giving you, I'm summing it up.
Yeah, no, that's great. No,
my takeaway from it. Another book that I Think and Grow Rich. That's another book that really helped me out. Characteristics.
Yeah, classic. Napoleon.
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. I think I read that book many, many, many times. The another book that helps me out is I just got it from Steve Jobs, The Hero Code. It's a really, really good book. And again, it's about taking action, compassion, putting yourself down. And my number one book that makes me very successful, honestly, is the Bible. I read it daily. Proverbs, Psalms, Proverbs, the book of wisdom, is what started me on the journey. Faith, it's a faith book also. Right. But Proverbs, turn to the ant. He stores up the food during the summer so that he's okay for the winter. Right. So I look at a lot of those Proverbs. I read King Solomon a lot, especially when I'm having an issue. I'll go back to the book of Proverbs in Ecclesiastes to set me straight. And I also go back, if I'm having a bad problem, I'll go to the book of Job and say, wasn't that bad? So I can handle it.
Right. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Well, the most read book of all time, right? It has to have some wisdom in it, right?
It has lots of wisdom, and it has carried me along the years. Yes, it has.
That's really nice. So, Freight Quote, what was the best thing about Freight Quote's culture for you?
He had a family culture, and he had a work-life balance culture. Mm-hmm. He did not want you to take the work home, but you're in transportation. You're going to take it home. Right. Okay. But he didn't want you to feel the need to have to take it home. Right. When we were at Freight Quote, it was more of a learning, and it was very family oriented. One thing I did like about Tim is he allowed people to talk to him. He wasn't puffed up. He wasn't stuck in the air. He wasn't, I'm better than you. He would give the stories on how he was He was very what's the word I'm looking for? He could relate to anyone. You know, if you had something going on in your life, he had a story to relate to it. You know, nothing came without hard work. That was what he instilled in all of us. So we called it Freight Quote University. That's what we call it.
Okay.
Because most of the people who have come out of Freight Quote has gone on to do other things in supply chain, whether they own a warehouse or a trucking company, they started their own tech company, or they started their own logistics company. We all call it Freight Quote University because since the time that I got there, the trainer on the whiteboard put up there and said, "This is a truck." Things we never even knew. Now we knew about the truck drivers on the streets. You know, when you're a kid and you do your honk honk with your hand, and then the truck driver, they honk back at you.
Oh yeah.
We all know about that. I had family who owned trucks,
Oh yeah.
but I never knew the back end of how it all happened. When you get to Freight Quote, you're going to learn. I don't know if they do that now. I don't know if they still do that. But he took they put a lot of stock into education.
Right.
That's one thing we loved about him. He also gave a lot of incentives, and everyone, he had more of a health. It was a work-life health balance. He wanted you to be healthy. For one, he cared about you. He cared about your family. Tim knew one thing. It wasn't just the employee that he had to look after. He had to look after the employee spouses. He also had to look after the kids of the employees. So it wasn't just one employee. It was the spouse and the children that he knew he had to look after. He created an environment that made you feel like he cared.
Mm-hmm.
All of his sales reps, I'm not going to say all, you know, there's always some bad apples because it's the people who spoil it, not the not the establishment itself. It's usually the people. So you get rid of those and you bring in better people.
Yeah.
But he made ways for advancement. Even in customer service, there were bonuses. People just love to be there, loved to work for him, loved it. And I remember there was a bad lawsuit that came in that happened with him. People wanted to sue him. People were just, you know, when you get to that level, they sue for ridiculous reasons. I mean, they just come after you just for dumb reasons, just to get ahead. And I remember that. And I remember there was a big class action against him. And people were saying, "Are you going to sign it? You're going to sign it?" I said, "No, I would never do him like that. He's been too good to me." And we didn't even know each other. No. But he had been too good to us as employees for me to even take that leap to sign that. And I see how he changed, even just the culture of Freight Quote changed many lives. When I worked at Freight Quote, when I joined the sales team, Jeff, that was the most money I had ever made in my life. The most money and I was well over the $100,000s of dollars. Mm-hmm. But to give me a platform that I was able to do that was unheard of in a lot of places, unless you went to Harvard or MIT or law school or became a doctor. You understand what I'm saying? Sure. You know, the 8 that they give you in school, you know, lawyer, doctor, policeman, you're not making that much. Right. Firefighter, they only give you certain careers that they want you to fall in between. He created something different. Right. He gave us a whole new outlook on trade. Trade runs the world. Oh my goodness. Why come we didn't think about that? Where's the light bulb? Mm-hmm. Trade, transportation. This is how we eat. This is how the food gets from the farm to the table. This is how my clothes get here. Yeah. This is how every necessity we have, which is lumber and food and essentials. This is all of this is moving. Mm-hmm. He gave us a new perspective on the world, on trade, and on and just life. So that's how he changed my life. I thank him for it all the time. I send him a text every once in a while. I say, "Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for what you did." Because he also took time to teach me some things. Yeah. You know, and I know he taught me because I asked. Again, I'm not a risk taker when it comes down to my life, jumping out of a plane, but man, will I take a risk for knowledge? I've always been one to ask. So when I would take the time to ask him a few questions on how did you get started with this? What can I do to improve my life? Or how can I advance? He take the time to sit down and talk to me about it as a CEO. And so him and I became good friends. And if he was dishing out information, I was taking the information.
You had a
And
notepad and a pen.
notepad and pen. Yes, I did. And every chance I got, I asked the question.
Yeah, that's
And
nice. Well,
yeah,
that says a lot about Tim then.
yeah,
I worked at Capital One Home Loans here in Kansas City, and with similar environment, phone sales, had opportunities to make a lot of money, if you did the work. And but sometimes crazy stuff would happen in the culture, right? Because you get a lot of people that are, type A
uh-huh,
salespeople, wanting to make a lot of money because they have multiple homes, they want nice
yeah,
cars. Some crazy things sometimes happen, at work or, after work. Any
yeah.
type of those stories you could share from the freight quote days?
Crazy things that had just happened. Not many crazy things. People, I remember truck drivers getting mad, and so one truck driver came up to the office, wanted to speak to somebody. He was like, da, 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 da. I don't know what
Yeah.
that was about, but nothing really. It was a really smooth operation he had.
Mhm.
Now, I've got some stories about some of the things that has happened in the freight world where, I think customers were shipping bad things. I think one truckload had mattresses, and then when it got to the receiver, it was full of roaches. I could talk about things like that,
Sure.
or unorthodox
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that we didn't know were shipping, that
Right.
the customer said we're going to ship this, and when you got to the shipper, it wasn't that product.
Okay.
So what is there's a lot of unorthodox things that we did learn about, that people were sneaky and doing things that were unethical.
Well, people are going to be people, so
Yes, they
there's
will.
great
Yes, they
people and there's not so great, right?
will. Yes.
So, Jai, tell me, after 9 years, you rank in the top 10 reps in terms of selling. You're doing so well, and then you decide to say, okay, I'm going to take what I learned and I'm going to start my own company. So, what was your thinking there, and leaving such a successful position, making the most money ever made in your life?
The opportunity for women. So at this time, I had been learning about woman-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and there were two things. I did this for women, and I also did it for my ecosystem, the Black community. There was two things. The reason why is because, yes, there was tons of opportunity that Tim presented, but we didn't know about it. It was a hidden gem. The only way I knew about it was someone called me and told me. But this was a hidden gem. This was a hidden career. Again, they're not telling you when you're in high school about logistics, are they?
No, no.
No, they're telling you lawyer, doctor, firefighter,
Right,
scientist, judge, but no one is talking about logistics or trade.
right.
No. So it was hidden. So there was two reasons. I saw a lot of money on the table for women-owned businesses. And I said, man, I could take this to the next level. And I could also show women that, hey, you too can be in this position and be successful. Two, I said, man, I can take this back to my neighborhood and I could change lives with it, because if it changed my life, it could change a lot of people's lives. So my whole goal was I can show people how to control logistics, give them opportunity to help them feed their families. Those were the two reasons I opened Maze Freight. Nothing to spite Tim, nothing to spite the company. I just had, and here's the thing, Tim had always told me, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader. And so when I called him after he had sold the company and told him what I was doing, the first thing he said was, good, it's about time.
Hmm.
And that right there, I had already prayed about it. My husband was my number one cheerleader. You can do this. This is what you're destined to do. You have to do it. You have to do it. When he told me it's about time, it was kind of like, okay, all right, this is it. This is it. So a bird knows when it's time to leave the nest. I knew it was time to leave the nest. And I knew that it was time for me to create opportunities. Now, I went in a total separate section. Tim, when he was freight quote, he solely focused on LTL, less than truckload. That's less than truckload, meaning 1 or 2 pallets, less than a full truckload of freight. Okay. That was his main niche. And it was software. And I ran more of the full truckload. That was my niche. But I also wanted to take it to the next level. I learned about heavy haul, which is heavier freight, everything above 48,000 pounds. That was my niche. That was my desire. That was my heart's desire, to move bridges, windmills, heavy machinery. So that's the level that I took it to. And then when I left, also, I saw the opportunity with the military, with Northrop Grumman, with all of the arms and the weapons manufacturers for woman-owned. So I went after that. And I can only do that as a woman-owned. I can only do that as a minority-owned. I could not do that under the umbrella of Freight Quote.
I see. So you couldn't do the heavy haul under the Freight Quote umbrella.
I could do the heavy haul under them, but I could not do the contracts for woman-owned and minority-owned.
Right, because okay.
Exactly. And so when I saw that money on the table, I said, man, I can go get that, create jobs, teach someone else how to do it, create a franchise. So that's what we do at Mays Freight. It's more of a franchise. We teach you how to do it. You go on and you start your own team through our company.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I noticed that on LinkedIn, the number of employees was low.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's basically you 1099 those people, or
we 1099 them, and they have their own teams.
Yeah, interesting. So after your first 6 months, you start the company. So you started 6 months ago in 2017. What was your biggest surprise? Like, what was your biggest learning? Like, oh man, I didn't know this. What was this?
Everything. Everything.
Yeah.
So I knew how to sell. I could sell. I'm good at that. But then when you're the business owner, you have to wear all the hats. So you're the marketing person. You know how this goes, Jeff. You're the marketing person. You're the accountant. You're the bookkeeper, and you're also
Chief
the
people
customer
officer.
service rep. Yeah. So I had to learn how to run a company. One advice. So the first thing I did was, before I started, I reached out to SCORE. SCORE is a program that helps mentor and get business or entrepreneurs started. I did reach out to SCORE, and I had a nice mentor. So he taught me everything to do. This is how you go get. My brother has started several businesses, so I already knew who to go to. How do I start this up? Where do I go? To Secretary of State, EIN. He was my go-to on that. I told you he's the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So he taught me that, but I still needed to know, how do I get a business account? How do I get a business line of credit? What do I need to do? And so I talked to SCORE, and the first thing he told me that has resonated with me, he says, before we get started, I want to stick this in your head. I said, what is it? He said, grow slow and stay in control. He said, I see you're eager. I see you watching all of these venture capitalists. You're watching Silicon Valley. You're looking for a venture capitalist to come in, drop millions of dollars on you, and you're going to.
Right.
I said, no, they hype you up in the movies, don't they? And I was looking at the what is the movie? War Dogs, the guys who were armed dealers for the military, War Dogs. And they got all of these government contracts on Fed Biz Ops, and they just made all types of money. I think Jonah Hill was in it. They were arms dealers. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, we can do this. We can get all these contracts. Yes. So they had me hyped up. I was like, and we can move all of this stuff, and we can do this, and we can do that. And he looked at me.
So you hadn't thought about the government contracts until that movie, or you already had that in your mind?
It was the movie.
Oh my goodness.
It
That's
was the
really,
movie. It
love
was
it.
the movie. It was the
Love it.
movie because I
Yeah.
started looking into it. And then when I saw that it was woman owned, I said, oh my goodness, woman owned.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't thought about the government. It was the movie that inspired it. So you'd be surprised on how much this movie has inspired
Love it.
people.
I
I didn't
love
go in arms, but I was in freight
Right.
transportation.
Yeah.
And so where was I at? So yeah, that's where the inspiration was coming from. And what happened was we did grow. I can sell. I'm a great seller. I can sell. Honestly, in the second day that we launched and opened, we got the first customer. And so got that guy. It was running smooth. I had got credit cards set up to be able to take credit card payments. I remembered some things. So I was reaching out to some good friends over at DAT, which is a software company that is a transportation management system software company. I had to get set up with them. I reached out to someone called Truck Stop. That's another transportation management system. And they helped me put my contracts together. Says you're going to need this as a broker. You're going to need this for your carriers. You're going to need this for your BOLs. So I'm going to seek counsel on everything. I don't know everything. What I'm going to do is reach out to the right people to get the knowledge on how to do things. So they all helped me out. They helped me put all the contracts together. They were so excited. I had made relationships with these people. I had a good friend had a relationship with he owned a trucking company. I told him what I was doing. He says, oh my goodness, Jai, I'm so jealous because I want you to come over here and run my company, but you have to do what you have to do. So I'm going to help you. So when it came down to carrier payments, he was helping me pay my carriers and I would just reimburse him. Great guy, great guy. But when you're the new kid on the block, you have to have a certain amount of money because when you're the new kid, a new broker on the block, carriers don't trust you. And trust me, they have every reason not to. There's a lot of theft that goes on in logistics and trucking. So the drivers don't trust you. So they want their money up front. I was told this before I went out on my own. I was told this, so I prepared for it. And so what I did is I would have to pay the drivers up front before they even, so I was smart. I said, I'm not going to pay you all at once up front. What I'm going to do is you get to the shipper, I'm going to pay you half. Once you get to the delivery, I'm going to pay you the other half. Okay. That's what I had to learn, not to give all your money up front because I got scammed.
Right.
Got scammed. And so I got scammed once in the beginning. So life is the best teacher.
Yes, it is.
Also, I did not know how to handle the growth. I landed a large customer, a large guy. And I'm thinking, okay, good. He's going to pay me in 30 to 45 days. I'm going to go ahead and set this credit line up with this carrier. I did that. Well, sometimes I did not know on the back office that sometimes 30 days can turn into 60 days. 60 days can turn into 90 days. So I've got a backlog of invoices that have not been paid, and I'm out of money because I've had to pay the carrier. I didn't know that.
Right. Wow.
I wasn't prepared for that. Also, I wasn't prepared. I think this was 2018 and steel tariffs. Remember that? Steel tariffs that came out.
Right.
3 of our customers had to shut down because of that. I wasn't prepared for that. I wasn't prepared enough to deal with losing 3 companies. So I wish I would have grown slow and stay in control. I didn't really take that to heed. I had caught myself. I was in $100,000 hole, Jeff.
Wow.
A $100,000 hole, had a bunch of back invoices that had not been paid, and I had to dig myself out of it. So what did I do? I went old school. I went old school light bill company. Listen, I don't have the whole thing, but if you let me put $50 on it today, I'll pay you in increments as this goes along. Right. I got my debt paid off. It was $100,000, got the debt paid off. And what did I do? I started taking classes. So after SCORE, I went to Scale Up, which is at the Kauffman Center
Right.
or through UMKC.
Mhm.
And since that time of Scale Up, I've been taking classes, reading books, YouTubing, listening to podcasts. I brought on, there was a gentleman who helped me who really took it to the next level, Nick Ruffin. He was the trainer at Freight Quote. Before Tim sold the company, Nick had moved on to become, he worked for a credit card processing company and moved on to be interim COO for that company. And when I first started Maze Freight, I saw in the vision, I prayed, I said, God, I'm going to need help with this because I don't know everything. I just know I want to bring the best people on to create a successful company. And Nick Ruffin was not available at the time. I went to his wedding. My husband and I went to his wedding thinking we're getting ready to go recruit him. At his wedding, he was talking about the company that he worked for, how he loved it so much. They're going to take over the world. So I looked at him, my husband, I said, well, he's not coming. He's not coming. And so I got very discouraged, but I kept moving forward, still wearing all the hats. I was on dinosaur spreadsheets. I did everything through spreadsheet, everything. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
I did have some good friends that worked with me at Freight Quote who was in the IT. They helped me get set up. Tim had my back. Tim was there with me. He helped walk and coach me through a lot of things to where I didn't fall so hard. He's the one who told me that, Josh, sometimes you can grow so fast, you'll grow right on yourself right into a hole. And so I had to take heed to that as well, dig myself out of that hole, take myself to school to learn how to be a CEO. Several months later, I get a call from Nick Ruffin saying that he was looking for new opportunities. And that's when I knew God was on my side.
Wow, that's great.
Nick Ruffin came into the business. He's very proficient in technology, running efficient companies. So he looked at my operation and said, I like what you're doing. And my numbers were great. I mean, we were profitable,
Yeah.
numbers were great, but everything was on spreadsheets. And he's like, we've got to put it into this. So he's the first one who got us set up on systems. And ever since he got us set up on systems, we've taken off and we've run tremendously. He actually runs the majority of the company. I'm making deals, meeting people and closing big deals, but he is the operations guy. We also have Deidre Craig, who is a part of our organization, and she takes care of all of our HR and takes care of our budget and our bookkeeping. The one thing I did have to let go was I had to learn how to let go of doing it all. I had to let go of that and letting someone else take on different aspects of the business. That was a hard thing for me to do. I've got Deidre Craig. She takes care of a lot of things. And then we have the team. And then we have our sales team managers who, again, they're franchisees. They have their own teams. So it's been a growing process. I've been up and I've been down. I've been scammed a few times. I've had agents scam me. We've been think they've stole from us. I've been through anything you can think of. I've been through it.
Obviously, you're a lifelong learner. That's how you get better at things. If there's one book recommendation for a first-time entrepreneur like yourself that would help them, what would your recommendation be for them?
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Okay, nice.
The reason why I say Think and Grow Rich is because he's giving you the characteristics of a successful person. And that comes along with tenacity, patience, compassion, and diligence. Because before you jump into being an entrepreneur, you need to make sure you have patience. Before you jump into being an entrepreneur, you need to make sure you have resilience and tough skin, and that you can take some blows. And you also have to have faith. It teaches faith, which I am a Bible reader. I know about faith, but it teaches you faith. It teaches you future forward thinking. And I would say read that book to go ahead and put you in the mindset of success. It plants that foundation, plants the seed of success. And once you read it, you want to pull the trigger. You want to activate what you've learned. But I say you have to think it first. See, the book is Think and Grow Rich.
Right.
So it starts, the seed has to be planted in your mind. And in the book also talks, it gives you different scenarios on Henry Ford, on the Carnegies, on how Henry Ford failed time and time and time and time and time again. But he didn't stay down. He kept moving forward, and it finally worked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the thinking first, and then the growing. I would recommend that book to anyone.
I did hear in another podcast you did part of your, I don't know if it's the hiring process or after they're aboard, but you use vision boards. Is that part of the think and grow rich
Yes, it
mentality?
is.
Because
Yes, it
I'm very
is.
familiar. I've done a vision board once or twice. I believe in them, but I've never heard of a company kind of
Yes.
instituting. So what is
So
that
we
like?
don't do it as far. Yeah, actually, we did do it as a company. Actually, we did. Yes, more of a triage and more of where we want to go. So yes, we did. We moved on. Our vision board, when we first started, we had to start. So when you first start, you take any company or any customer you can get.
Right,
Okay,
right.
whether that's LTL or truckload or whatever you can get, and we still have different SKUs and different revenue streams that we're working on because it's on our vision board.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a vision board for the company. I have one personally. My husband has one, and we have, for the company, we have different revenue streams that we're also working on through Maze Freight. This one, I knew I wanted to do heavy haul, and I knew I wanted to secure the first contract also. That was on the vision board.
Yeah.
Securing our first contract and moving our first heavy piece of equipment. We've done that. So now we're on to the next SKU or the next revenue. Yeah, the next thing.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your hiring process when you're interviewing. It seemed like you asked a unique question to kind of because what you're looking for is high achievers, right? You want people that are motivated to be
Yes.
successful, help as many customers as possible, that they can add value to them as well as they achieve prosperity through helping as many customers. What's your screening process like to find those people? Because it's obviously difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult because we work on a commissions base. So we look for people who aren't ones who want a quick fix. This is not a microwave world. This is not a microwave. You're going to have to hustle. So we look for hustlers. We look for hustlers. And we look for more of competitive edge people. So there's two characteristics we look for, more of an athletic, competitive, and then also military mindset. And the reason why we look for that, I watch my husband, he's ex-military, but he's very organized. I mean, and if you give him a task, he's going to do it. Like every military man, my brother's military, my dad was military, my husband's ex-military.
And they make their beds first thing in the morning.
And they're exactly, and everything is nice and tidy and neat and very organized. I mean, even the sticky notes are just in the right location, like everything he does. So these are two characteristics we look for: competitive nature and a military mindset. Why is that? Is because in this business, there's so many other organizations that are going after the same thing you're going after. What is going to make you different? And how can you add value to the customer? What is going to make the customer say, okay, I'm going to choose you to do business with versus Joe Blow over here? Because we're basically doing the same thing, but what are we doing different? And how are we adding value? These are characteristics. I need someone with that commercial, I have a wonderful personality, I have a brilliant personality. I need that. But I also need someone who has thick skin and can take getting yelled at. You have to be able to take that, because if something goes wrong and a customer is frustrated, you have to be able to take that on the chin with the customer being frustrated because something did go wrong and they're frustrated. And if something goes wrong in transportation, that can mess up their production. We don't have things that happen often, but when they do, you got to be able to take it on the chin and roll with it. You can't be sensitive. So we don't look for sensitivity. We look for thick skin. We look for a competitive edge. And we also look for people who are organized.
you're in the midst of running a company, starting a company, learning about all aspects of the company. And then what made you write your book about entrepreneurship? A different approach, I believe it's called
Yes.
Finding Your Toddler, which I love the title.
Finally, your toddler ambition.
But what was the inspiration to write that book? Because you're obviously busy.
So, watching my children,
Yeah.
I watched my kids as they were growing up. So children, children, Jeff, when they get a certain age, I can do it myself, mom. Or watching them walk. How many times they fall learning how to walk. They don't stay down, do they? They do not stay down.
That's right.
Toddlers are the determined individuals. That is the most determined time in their life. They want to feed themselves. They want to tie their own shoes. They want to fly. What is their definition of flying? It could be jumping off the bed, but in their minds, they're flying. So the tenacity to keep walking, the tenacity to run with the big kids, the tenacity to learn how to ride a bike. They're going to fall many, many times, but they're going to get back up, and then they're going to learn how to ride.
The no fear mentality.
The no fear mentality. You've got it. That is what the book is about.
I love it. Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Well, see, that's the book you should have recommended for first-time entrepreneurs then, your own.
I never promote myself. I'm always thinking about things that and my husband tells me, I say, you've got to talk about your book. I'm not like, oh, yes, I did write a book. It is a good book. And it really is a good book. People get motivated by that book.
Yeah.
It is Finding Your Toddler Ambition. Yes, it is good. Yes.
I love that. John, there's two groups I love to help with great leadership advice from great leaders like yourself. The first group is that person that comes out of college, no matter what age, but they just got their college degree. Let's pretend it's the 22 to 23, 24-year-old. What advice would you give that group of people to get their first job and to start their professional journey?
I would say, don't go out here with a high head thinking that you're worthy of X amount of dollars when you have no experience. So get some knowledge get your feet wet. Get your feet wet. Add value to the job. Here's my thing. Don't go in expecting the job to give you everything that you need on your checklist. What value are you getting ready to add to that employer? Go in with a mindset is I want to help them grow. I want to add value to this new team that I'm with, and whatever it takes. Nowadays, no one has that mailroom, I just need to get in and work my way up mentality anymore. No one has it. I don't even know where it's at. I think they just want to get rich on YouTube. I think that's where they're at, Jeff. YouTube and TikTok. I think they just all want to be influencers. Right. Coming straight out of college, But the advice that I would give is get out here and you go add value to someone. Don't look for a handout. You be the handout. Go add value. Learn. That's what we had to do. That's what I had to do. I had to work in my mom's bakery. I had to grow. I had to dig deep. I had to get my hands dirty before I achieved or was able to achieve what I did have and now working to achieve now.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. The second group is now, you work for a company or you go to a different company and now you get promoted. You're a manager. So now you're responsible for people. So now you're, from the org chart, you're manager, leader, whatever the title is. What leadership advice do you have for them as they embark on their leadership journey?
Again, don't be puffed up. Puffed up leaders grind my gears, because here's the thing. No one is alike. No one thinks like you. Everyone has different personality. Everyone has a different work rhythm. Okay. So listen and create a culture that everyone would like to be in. I had a boss at Freight Quote, one of the best men I ever had. His name is, I will call his name, John Lehman. John freaking Lehman. And he was an unorthodox type of manager. You know, I believe he told my VP now, my VP who works for me now, Nick, he told him, I want you to take my job. He was the manager then. And so we both have stories on this guy. But this guy pushed me. He pushed me. He used to tell me, there's more in you than you think. So I'm going to attach you to this task because I want you to do more. You have more in you, do more. And then what he would do is he would reward little bitty things, reward for good work, just small rewards for good work. Okay. If you did something wrong, he would never oust you in front of the group. He'd always pull you to the side. He would never embarrass anyone. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He would never embarrass you. He would always encourage you. And every day that I went to work, I would go to work for him. It's like no one else mattered. It was only to make him smile and to make him look good as the manager. That's why I went to work, to make sure he shined, because he was very encouraging to me. He never disrespected us, and he never made anyone feel out of place. If you were not a great fit for the team, he would find you somewhere else. He would place you somewhere. He would already had made a connection with a different manager to say, I think this person aligns with this type of group. She's not right for it. He wouldn't fire you. He would find you a different task.
Mm-hmm.
So he saw the good in people. And when he did see the bad in people, he would help you to work on that to be better. That's what a good leader does. That's what a good manager does. They don't kick you when you're down. He would pick you up, dust you off, and let you know that you can be better. That was John Lehman.
That's great advice. Great advice. Jai, you've been phenomenal. Love your energy. You've accomplished great things, and I think even greater things in the future. So thank you so much for coming on the Corporate Couch today.
I thank you so much for having me, and I enjoyed our conversation. I hope someone got something out of this. And yes, you're right, Jeff. Finding your toddler ambition, a different approach to entrepreneurship on Amazon.
Yes, use discount code The Corporate Couch. No, I'm kidding about that part. Thanks, Jai. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Take care.
You just have to love Jai's energy level. I knew I had to come with my A game to talk to her. I just love what she's done at such a young age. I mean, she pioneered being a Black female in the transportation industry and in sales. So selling to kind of I'll say the good old boys club, and being top 10 salesperson out of 700 reps, and then after a really successful time at Freight Quote, which is now C.H. Robinson, she in her mid-30s started her own company to help bring more females and people of color into the transportation industry. I mean, just incredible. And then, then she has time to write a book, finding your toddler ambition, a different approach to entrepreneurship, and talking about, how kids can teach you so much, and they don't have a fear. They're the best salespeople. They're not afraid to ask questions. So anyhow, great person. Just I really enjoyed talking to her.
An amazing success story all around. It really was. I tell you, you hit several buttons for me personally with Jai. She's a church person, she's a musician, and she's a drummer. And that ticks every square.
Right in your wheelhouse.
Right in my wheelhouse. That's exactly what I am, and that's exactly what I understand and what I appreciate. So I fell in love with her immediately. As soon as, in the first few minutes of the interview that I heard that was going on, I thought, okay, this is somebody that I'm really going to like. One of the things I pulled out that I was really impressed with is when she was talking about describing her favorite boss and the relationship that she had with him. And she wanted nothing but to make him look good. That was the whole purpose in her life. Matter of fact, I even wrote down this quote. I want to make sure I get it right. I went to work every day to make him shine. And I think that is such a wonderful, healthy way to approach business. It comes real close to a philosophy that I've always had in business. where I say that the secret to succeeding in business is to, first of all, make your customer happy, and second, make your boss look good. If you can do those two things, you will be successful in business. And that was one of the keys to success that Jai had, an amazing career, an amazing success story.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better. I think she's in her early 40s, so she's got a
way to go.
More. Yep. Yeah. So any leadership wisdom you want to give our audience today, Joe?
Yeah, today it's a real short one, but it comes from that great philosopher Stephen Wright, who one time said, "Borrow money from pessimists. They don't expect it back."
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.